Hi, Tiffany.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
How's everyone?
Very good, Madam Chair. How are you?
I'm pretty good today. How's everyone? How are you, Chris and Lisa and Mayor and Wallace and Peter and whoever else I'm not seeing?
Oh, I'm
Good, how
doing
are
well,
you,
thank
Tim?
you.
All good.
We have all the IDA board members here and present.
Are we going to start with the committees or shall I open up?
Lisa?
I believe we're starting with the audit committee, and if that is, then it would be Rebecca Wolf that is opening up the meeting.
Tiffany, we need to make sure that Victor's here to present the audit.
Okay, is Victor here?
I don't see him.
Okay, well then we'll start with the.
I'll send him an email.
Okay. Well, and we have a full board, correct?
We do.
Okay, good. Shall we start, Lisa, with the full board meeting while we're waiting to hear from Victor?
We can. What we can do, why don't we start with the finance committee?
Okay, we can do that. Then
And that way we can get the compliance stuff out of the way. And we
Okay,
can go to the governance too, and then that gives Victor a chance to jump on. Oh, there he is. He's here.
okay, great. So we'll start from the beginning then. Rebecca Wolf, could you please open up? Thank you.
So you want me to call the meeting to order?
Well, we're going to
Yes,
start
please.
off with the audit committee meeting, so yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm calling the audit committee meeting to order. Can I have a motion to start the meeting?
I think you would just state that we're starting the meeting and you're the chair. I believe you do have a full committee. So you just state the time and start off with the presenting the draft from January 19th, the minutes.
Okay, it's 1:05 p.m. I'm starting the audit committee meeting. Can we please approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
I
you.
second the motion.
Awesome. Anyone opposed? Nope, motion approved. We'll approve those minutes. I'm sorry, somebody's gonna have to keep prompting me right now because
Okay, so you approved the minutes for January for the January 19th audit. You made your motion in second. So I guess now you would ask the auditor, Victor, to present the 2020 audit financials to the committee and then take questions from the committee afterwards and then vote for the recommended financials to the full board for approval. And then take a motion for that.
okay. So Victor, could you please present the financials?
Thank you. Do I have the ability to share my screen to throw the financials up on it?
That should be possible.
Somebody needs to grant me permission.
Lisa, are you there? I think you're muted.
Okay, I'm here. I have no idea how to share the screen.
Who's the host of the meeting?
That would be me.
So just, you would allow Victor, there's a green button, share screen?
I mean, Rebecca can see the share screen button at the bottom. So
Oh,
Victor, do you see
got
that
it.
button? Because
Yeah, but I do not have,
The host has to give him permission for him to click that green button.
What did I just do?
you shared your screen.
You
Oh,
should,
that's
yeah.
not helpful, is it?
so next to your, Lisa, next to your share screen button, there's probably like 3 little ... kind of symbol.
Okay.
And if you click on that, it might say like make other people able to share or something like that.
Mike, if you know anything, your hand is up. You're also muted. Mike, you're muted. Mike, you are muted.
Lisa, if you hit those 3 little buttons and you go to security and you go down, it says allow participants to share screen.
I think she might have accomplished it.
Okay, great.
It was coming up with my screen.
Great. Bravo.
Now, I don't know what that big splash is that showed up there when I clicked. Keeps doing it. We'll work with that. I assume everyone sees the front page that says Hudson Industrial Development Agency, account of the city of Hudson, financial statements and supplementary information now.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay. I will scroll down. There was is Heather on the call? And Mike, you would each, okay, you would each gotten a draft, so I don't know if you had any questions or observations, we can deal with those as we get to the point, or you can wait for the end of the presentation, whichever way you want to go. The overall audit covers the governmental audit. So we have a management discussion and analysis we'll go through. It has the auditor's report, the balance sheet, which is the statement of position, the statement of activities, which is the income and expenses, statement of cash flows, which on a government audit report that's considered an enterprise fund, which an IDA is, and then footnotes. We have required supplementary schedules, which is the budget actual comparison. We have for a IDA, it's not RSI, but it is generally accepted that certain pilot disclosure information needs to be included, which was in the prior year's report. And then the last piece is a report on compliance with laws and regulations and internal controls, and we will go through that as well. The MD&A is first. The MD&A is a management discussion and analysis. It is actually not part of the audit report that we opine on. It's required to be in the audit report. It is a management document. And what that provides is the ability to look at certain significant things that happen throughout the year and compare it to the prior year. First, it goes through the overview of the financial statements. And I'm not going to read to you. We're going to look at the numbers, but the concept is to look at the financial statements, review the footnotes, consider the supplementary information, which I had already noted, that the pilots, the payment in lieu of taxes, which for and I said IDA, but any governmental entity that's participating in pilots is supposed to have this disclosure in their financial statements. And then we get into some of the financial highlights. The first financial highlights is that the agency equity did decrease by about $7,800 this year. Last year, the decrease was $7,300. That the total revenue this year was $9,500 and change. A year ago was just under $9,500 and change. And that the total operating expense year over year, which is somewhat comparable, $7,400 and change this year, $17,400 and change this year. $16,000, almost $800 in the prior year. And then we go through a column by column comparison, which generally will look at the assets and the liabilities and those revenues and expenses in detail. So the current year statement of net position, which is the balance sheet, it shows that your current assets are higher than a year ago. The capital assets is an estimate that has existed since before us as auditors for the fixed assets. You'll notice that the current assets are higher. You'll also notice the current liabilities are higher. That just is a timing item, which I think happened 2 or 3 years ago as well, is that the pilot payments were received and not all distributed to the participating entities by year end. That happened here in 2020 as well. So your net position, as we stated with the page before this, you had a decrease in net position of about $7,800. Here's where that is showing itself. And there's no change in the capital assets year over year. And again, as I had noted, that's an estimate that's being carried forward from prior years. The next page is the same comparison for the revenue and expenses, interest income on the accounts. And as total account balances are going down somewhat, interest income has declined. Other income is the contractual amounts received for other agreements that are going on. And this year was $9,200 in other income. Last year was $8,800, a slight increase. And your expenses, this is the total expenses. When we get to that page of the financial statements, it's primarily administrative professional fees that the pilot, that the IDA has. So that's professional fees. Here's the narrative on the expenses: professional fees for management, legal, and accounting services. Where can anyone who's interested in getting the underlying information, and they can contact the IDA at this address. That's the address we've been using. If there's a need to change that address, please update us. We are looking at this as a draft. So if there is any feedback today, we can certainly incorporate that. However, I have been through all the review, or a substantial portion of the review. We're wrapping up certain confirmations. We're making sure that we have received back the various inquiries we made of each of you as board members, whether related party or whether fraud inquiries as required by auditing statutes. Auditing requirements, they're not statutes. Audit criteria is not law. It is a audit requirement, but not a law or regulation. So we are looking at today as being the audit date, unless something of a material nature gets disclosed in some of those responses that are still coming in. Now, having stated that, what we are looking at is the audit report next. This is the opinion, and it is no change, no significant change in terminology. There always may be little nuances, but no change in significant terminology this year over last year. As a governmental entity, if there are differences in opinion units, and you have 2 opinion units here, you have the governmental activities, and then you have the business type activities. The governmental activities has a modified opinion, and the business type activities has an unmodified opinion, meaning clean. The modification relates to the valuation of the fixed asset. I had indicated earlier that $40,000 we were looking at in the management discussion analysis is an estimate that's carried forward. Here's the reason for the modified opinion. It's related to the valuation and the adequate records to support that $40,000. No one that we are aware of with inquiries that we have made is really aware where the $40,000 originally came from. So it is potentially certainly a fair estimate. And with the size of the operation, you don't try to resolve something that costs more than the benefit of resolving it. And all it does is impact this level in the financial statements, and you still have a clean or an unmodified opinion on the business type activities itself. So this is how the modified opinion is phrased, and then the modified opinion on the business type activities. If there's a large governmental entity, you can actually have a series of 5 or 6 different opinion units. The IDA just happens to have 2. Other matters, as I had indicated in the table of contents, there is required supplementary information that is part of the audit report. There is also supplemental information that is part of the audit report related to the disclosures and the statement schedule, supplemental schedule of pilots and full-time equivalents. And again, they are addressed in the table of contents. And because there is a report on compliance with laws and regulations, that is also disclosed that exists in the audit report. And what also gets disclosed in the audit report, since the IDA is actually a component unit of the City of Hudson, it's disclosed that this set of financial statement is not purported to represent the entire financial position of the City of Hudson. And that's probably obvious to yourselves, but it's to make sure that any reader that picks up the IDA understands that none of the other financial information related to the city is encompassed in this set of financial statements. So then we get into the overall activity itself, the governmental information. And again, it noted in the MD&A that cash is a little elevated over the prior year. The $161, we're using the term restricted, but it's not a restricted fund balance. That is actually escrow money that is on hand. And then this receivable is also related to that escrow account, that there was some money owed to the IDA from the entity pursuing another pilot. And these 2 amounts actually agree to one of the items in accounts payable that still needs to be paid at year end. And when we get down to the payables, then that is part of the $2,300. The rest of the $2,300 is normal contractual amounts that the IDA owes to, I believe, CEDC itself. And then this $171,000 as listed as due to other governments, that's the pilot amounts that are due out to the other entities for as of December 31st. And then you're left with fund balance. And then over in this far right-hand side, in the 3rd column, is where we put in the capital assets to get to the overall entity statement of net position in this final and 4th column. Because your activity is more than just the cash operation, there is capital assets. So to embrace that in the financial statements, that gets added in this 3rd column. There's a brief footnote at the bottom, number 1, explaining what that $40,000 is. And then we get to the net position, which is the $40,000 and the $39,000 from operations. And then, as I said, footnote 1 explains what the $40,000 is all about. Then we flow through into the activity of the operations itself. In a financial statement, in accordance with governmental accounting standards, lists expenses first. Sounds a little backwards, but lists expenses first. So the professional fees and expenses are listed here. And then the revenue is listed below it to come up with the change in net position. The change in net position then is shown as the $7,800, which again had mentioned back in the MD&A. There is no change in the $40,000 for the adjustment to entity-wide. So as you see, there's nothing in this 3rd column, and the $40,000 is both part of the opening and ending net position. And then the overall total statement of activities is the final and 4th column. And again, the footnote number 1 is explained at the bottom of the schedule. The statement of cash flows is just taking the operating activity and showing what was actually received in pilots for the year. Interest income, lease income, which was the other income we were talking about. Other charges for services is a reduction or an adjustment, and total operating expenses comes down to the change in cash and cash equivalents, because that's what a cash flow statement does, is it reflects your change in cash and cash equivalents activity for the year. And then at the bottom of the statement, it reconciles between the net position change on the prior page, and I don't want to jump back there and start making people crazy with jumping around too much, but this is the income on the prior page. These are the changes in accruals from year to year. And that then, once those adjustments are made, this number plus this number gives you the change in operating activities. And that change in operating activities is the number right here at the top of the page. And they should always reconcile. If they're off, it would only be rounding. And then we get into the footnotes. There are no significant footnote changes. Any governmental entity does have to give consideration to new accounting standards as they are released by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is in essence a subdivision of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So one change that you will note if you compare this financial statement to the prior year financial statement is once we get down here to new accounting standards, there will be different terminology, but otherwise everything I'm scrolling past now has not changed from the prior year. So now when I get down here to new accounting information, we have listed new accounting standards that are applicable to the current year. And one of those that's applicable to the current year is that the Government Accounting Standards Board issued in the May-June timeframe last year a postponement of the application of a lot of accounting standards because of the pandemic, and it pushed off the application date of a lot of standards. So for example, this one related to leases that is under future changes in accounting standards would have actually been applicable already, but it was deferred. So that's in there as a, and then it lists all of the others that are now out there that potentially could impact a future year. And accounting standards do use a funny terminology to say when they're applicable. They always talk about periods beginning after a key date. And 99% of the time that key date is either a December 15th key date or a June 15th key date. I cannot recall a time where I've seen an effective date that was not one of those two. And that's true whether it's government accounting standards or financial accounting standards for nonprofit and commercial entities. So this lists, the other accounting standards that have been issued by the Government Accounting Standards Board, and there's a lot of them. And with the activity of an IDA, most of these will probably not be applicable to the IDA, but we deem them to be certainly enough informative to the reader that there's a lot of things going on in accounting standards for governmental entities, and that's why they're in there. For example, here's probably one that would not end up being applicable. We're talking about deferred compensation plans for governmental entities. The IDA does not have one. So when it comes to determining whether that's applicable or not, obviously it would not be applicable. So in essence, the IDA could adopt it, but it has zero impact. It's not material to your operations. Stewardship footnote is a required footnote. Again, no terminology changes in that from the prior year. Other required footnotes have to do with cash and cash equivalents and identifying whether you're secured with your deposits, either through FDIC insurance or through collateral with the bank. FDIC insurance covers the first $250,000, so you don't need any collateral because $250,000 of FDIC insurance is sufficient to cover your bank balance on hand at the end of the year, and for the most part throughout the entire year. We have a short disclosure for pilot receivables at year end. Debatable whether that's required because it's $485 material to the IDA. Your operations are small enough in nature that it was just easier to disclose it than worry about the materiality level, to be honest. Property, plant, and equipment has to be disclosed. And again, this is the item that is an estimate from historical records. Now we get into, this is required footnote disclosure for any municipal entity that's participating in a pilot. So tax abatement is in here and listed, and this is the historical tax abatement for the historical pilot. Nothing to do with the new ones that you're reviewing and working on within the IDA. And it does disclose on a calculation basis what would have been the abated taxes for the current year only. There's actually a supplemental schedule giving a little more detail on that. If there is conduit debt, it does disclose where there is conduit debt related to the IDA. Commitments and contingencies. Historically, you've had the A part of this note because of COVID and the pandemic. Accounting standards generally says if there's something going on worldwide that could impact a set of financial statements, you do need to at least throw out there for the reader that it's existing. This is worldwide in nature. If there was something more localized, perhaps that's more important for the readers of a financial statement to know what's going on a local basis. But so the disclosure that's being suggested here is perhaps somewhat generic in nature, but saying, hey, there's things going on there. There's supply chain issues. While there's no specific employees for the IDA, you are doing things different. This is one of the things you're doing different. When we first started attending the meetings, we were attending all of them in person. To help maintain everyone's safety, you've gone to a virtual presentation basis, and that's just some of the disclosure that's meant to cover that kind of thing. Then under subsequent events, we're listing a couple of items. The first item is a new agreement you've been working on for a while now, and I think we got the address changed on that. I think that was a typo originally. 602 Union Street is one that I've noted through reviewing your minutes for the entire year that you've been working on. And there was actually an approval that you passed at the October meeting, an agreement to proceed on working on the payment in lieu of taxes. And I think that agreement also authorized the administration to sign appropriate documents as they came forward. And at that point in time, what was noted in that set of board minutes is that construction was anticipated to start in January 2021. That is actually highlighted here. We want to verify that was the applicable date, or if we need to change it, if construction didn't start and it started in February, we can change that date. Then we also noted in later board minutes and other activity documents during the year that you started reviewing another, I'll call it a set of applications, because it was an application that covered two locations or two addresses. So that also gets disclosed as a subsequent event. So let's see. And that page is in my draft that I have twice. So I apologize for that. Then we get to this is the RSI, required supplemental schedule, which is a budget actual comparison. You have actually built a budget, which you'll note on the next page, where the budget amount of revenues is different than the budget amount of expenses, because that is including an estimate of administration fees. We didn't have those administrative fees actually hit the 2020 year because the first set of administrative fees, and I'm not sure if it was covered in the footnote, occurs when the agreements are first signed, and you ultimately divided that first agreement that was disclosed in the previous footnote into 3 payments. So whatever that total amount is will be recognized over 3 payments, and depending upon how quickly the activity occurs, whether that occurs in 1 year or not. But that's why budgetarily, when you did this budget a year ago, or more than a year and a half ago at this point, you couldn't have known specifically that you would not have received any of those administrative fees. So that was in the budget. This is the actual revenues for the year. And then when we get down to the expense side, your expenses are primarily professional fees in nature, legal, administration, and audit fees. So that's the amount of the budget for that, the 23 grand. And you'll note that I had made the observation that you're basically building a budget with the anticipation that when you get those administrative fees I was talking about on the prior page, you should be adding to fund balance. You're not spending the entire piece of it. Then the last, where are we? Not quite, well, yes, the last schedule on supplemental information is the purported recommended schedule related to disclosing information related to the pilot and what the payment in lieu of tax amounts are, what the total is, and if the pilot was not in place, what the exemption amounts are, and what potentially would have been the property taxes versus the payment in lieu of taxes. So what the differential is between the two of those, and then the required projected amounts, original estimates, and then the current FTEs in place. And obviously you're past the construction period on this, so that particular pilot won't have that. This schedule will be broken down by pilot. So as the future occurs and you get into the other pilot agreements that you're currently working on with those looking to build in the city of Hudson, this schedule will become a little more complicated. We've historically had the one pilot, so based upon working on the one you worked on most of the year in 2020 and the one that you started working on at the end of 2020, there could be 3 more added here before the Hudson Terrace pilot is done. Then, as I noted, when we looked at the table of contents, the required schedule on compliance with laws and regulations, and I'm happy to bring to your attention that there was nothing we noted. We did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be a material weakness. If we had, we would need to disclose those. The other thing we look at related to this report is compliance with laws and regulations. And again, it's for limited assurance, but for these purposes, there were no instances of non-compliance or other matters that were required to be reported that came to our attention during the audit process. So those are all positives, those are all pluses. This is required by governmental auditing standards, this report, but it is intended for those charged with governance, and really that's its intended purpose under government auditing standards. So that does bring us through the entire report. I do not recall, I think we have gotten most of the related party and fraud responses back. I can open another work schedule and let me pull this off to the side. Actually, it is you folks. Confirmation section. And this would probably only have been updated as of the 26th or 28th last week. So it should have on it any of the, where is it and where is it opening? Oh, it's coming. Just bear with me a moment. We're almost done. I can find where the Excel schedule is. There it is. Okay. So we've got a couple in. I'm not sure if we've received these. I will be checking on that to make sure we've received those. We do not send out all the related parties to every board member and director, and we usually do rotate that somewhat on a annual basis. Those people who are committee chairs will get picked on. So as I've just highlighted this one, that's why the audit committee chair was selected for one of the confirmations as well. So we will be wrapping that up. I had shared with Mike Tucker information last week when we went online to the ABO to check on, to see if the pandemic had impacted the filing deadline. The filing deadline is generally speaking 90 days. So the beginning of this coming month, there was a executive order that did place a potential 60-day extension on that. Clearly, you're not in the position of needing that. Okay. And I think it's fair to say that Mike did share with me that the anticipated closing for the 620 Union Street location. So we did not update the address date on that. I knew that was an issue. Is going to be the second quarter of 2021. So I think that is that not Mike? Isn't that a trigger for when you get the first administrative fee?
Yes, and it may happen sooner than that, but it wasn't January, so I just gave ourselves a little bit of breathing room.
Okay. So we will need to update that footnote to get something that's a little more informative to any third-party readers. And again, we are reviewing this as a draft. So if there are any questions now, or if there's anything that either Heather has or Mike has or anyone on the board or finance committee has, we can certainly get that encompassed into the draft audit report. Let me get that back open here. There we go. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions on the committee or?
I just want to thank Victor and his team. As you can see from this audit, for the size of our agency, the level of detail and depth that's required to complete this type of a compliance and fiscal audit is frankly beyond belief, but we appreciate the great job that he did and that how thorough and comprehensive it is. So thank you.
I will acknowledge, as an auditor, for the size of your operation, it feels painful to have to do this, but to comply with the standards, there isn't a large version versus a small version. And what I just threw up on the shared screen, and I'll take that off in a minute, is this is a communication you will get that's sent to the IDA as the board of directors, and we go through what are the accounting estimates. Accounting estimates are related to the fixed assets, and that's this area here. And what sensitive disclosures are there? Well, anything related to the tax abatement disclosures is sensitive, so that'll be disclosed. As part of the audit process, we have to document if there are any disagreements with management. There were none. Were there any uncorrected adjustments that we saw during the audit process? There was none. Was management consulting with other accountants, basically buying a second opinion? There was none. Other matters gets listed because we did have other matters disclosed in the financial statements. So this is a required communication you will get when the audit report is issued. Right now it is in draft form. It's not on letterhead yet because we haven't issued the statement. So if you're accustomed to or recall seeing that in prior audits or prior other audits you've heard me present, yes, you do get a communication with the audit committee and the board with those charges of governance, and it will be part of the final document. So that does draw my presentation to a close unless there are questions.
Are there any questions from the committee or the board or the public?
Excuse me.
I see. Is somebody, Mike? You have your hand up, but I don't know if that's old.
That's an old one. That's when I was trying to figure out how to find shared screen, but I just deleted it.
Okay. Anyone else? It looks like there are no questions. So so now, do I need to accept that do we need a motion to accept the audit? Is that what's next?
Yes,
Nope.
you do.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the audit report?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
No, second.
Motion passed. Or no, can we vote on that, please?
No, you're fine. You
All
voted
in
on it.
favor, Rebecca, all in favor.
All in favor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Ask for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make that motion.
Can anyone second it?
A second.
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the Finance Committee meeting, and that is with Heather Campbell as the chair with the Finance Committee members.
Unless there's any reason that anybody wants me to stay on, I will leave your meeting, and I thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Victor.
You're more than welcome to stay with us.
I have another meeting tonight that I need to prepare for. You're actually my second presentation of the day, and I have another one tonight. So
Enjoy your day.
have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Victor.
I don't know if you're muted, Heather, but we can't hear you.
My screen is frozen, so I'm having a little trouble following along. But Lisa, did you send out documents for the finance meeting?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I sent out the minutes and I sent out the 2020 investment report minus the audited financials. So we need to approve the minutes
Right.
of January 19th.
Okay. This is the opening of the finance committee meeting. First thing on the agenda is to accept the minutes of the prior month's meeting. Can I have a motion?
John and Rebecca, you're both on that committee.
Yep, I'll make that motion. Rebecca?
And can I have a second?
A second, John.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried, minutes are accepted. Lisa, did you want to talk about the draft Paris report that you issued?
Oh, I can. Let's do, if we can do the investment report, because that's another thing we have to do.
Okay, that's fine. Can I have a motion to accept the investment report?
I, Rebecca, will make that motion.
I'll second it.
And may I have a second? Thank
John.
you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion is carried.
So you want to address the Paris report, correct?
I'm asking if you think we should.
I think they need to look at it. They're supposed to review it at some point. It's not ready to approve by any means, but I did send out a draft to everyone. If you have questions, you should feel free to give me a call. We still have to do the financial part. We have to do the budget part. It's just an overview of what you've done for the year, compliance-wise, financial-wise, reports on projects. I will send out another copy when it's done if you want to. That's fine. But
Okay,
that's
so I
where we
think
stand with that.
Okay, I think at this point then, I would recommend to the Finance Committee that, as well as the committee as a whole, the board as a whole, to review the draft on hand and contact Lisa and myself with any questions. And we can review it when it is closer to completion. That work for you guys,
Yeah.
Rebecca and
Yep.
John? Okay. Then I make that recommendation. And I think with that, we can close the Finance Committee. May I have a motion
So moved. John.
and a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Oh, sorry, I should probably ask if anybody in the public has any questions before we close. Okay, I will take that as a no. And all in favor to close, say aye again.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the Finance Committee meeting is now adjourned.
Now we're moving on to the Governance Committee meeting, and the chair is Kamal Johnson with myself and Ms. Wolf.
I believe we just have the January 19th minutes to approve.
I'll make the motion to accept those minutes.
We need a second.
Sorry, I'll second it.
We don't need a full vote on that, do we?
Technically, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. There's no further discussion.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor? We do have to approve the 2021 compliance calendar.
Gotcha. Can I have a motion to approve the 2021 compliance calendar?
I, Rebecca, will make that motion. You're muted. Tiffany.
You're muted, Tiff.
And I will second that motion to send to the full board.
Great. There's no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Any public comments?
Could I ask a question? Actually, this is Rebecca. I'm curious. So in the governance section is where we would talk about like the composition of the board. Is that right? Yes, Chris, you nodded. Or I think,
Yes, the governance committee can make recommendations
okay,
for board vacancies and that sort of thing, yes.
okay. Thanks. I have nothing to add. I just wanted to ask that. Thank you.
There's no further discussion. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn the Governance Committee meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, I hand it back to you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you all. We have a full board today at March 2nd, and it is 1:49. And just for the sake of the record, let's state that we are here. So Tiffany Garriga is here.
Rebecca Wolf here.
John Cody's here.
Kamal Johnson here.
Heather Campbell's here.
Richard Wallace here.
Thank you. And moving on, we have minutes to accept. And I would need a motion to accept the February 2nd of the 2021. And a motion and a second to accept the minutes, please.
So moved, John Cody.
Thank you. I need a second, please.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Are we missing anyone? Anyone opposed? All righty then. So moving on to the Audit Committee report for 2020 and the audit financials. Before we have any motions, are there any questions from the board or public? If there aren't any questions, could that follow with a motion to accept the Audit Committee report in
I'll make that
2020?
motion, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. May I have a second, please?
I'll second it, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, moving on to the Finance Committee report of 2020 investment report. If there aren't any questions, may I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll
So
make
moved.
that motion. Or I'll second
A
it.
second.
You have that, Lisa?
I do.
Okay, good. Are there any all in favor, please?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. If there is no opposed, then we will move forward with the Governance Committee report, the 2021 compliance calendar. If there aren't any questions with that, may I have a motion and a second, please?
I will make
I'll
that.
motion, Heather.
Thank you.
I'll second it. Rebecca.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Couple more ayes.
Aye.
Sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Thank you. If there's no opposed, we will move forward with the 2020 statement of the internal control. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I, Rebecca, will make that motion.
And I'll second John Cody.
Thank you, Rebecca and Mr. John Cody. Are there any, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah, is
Aye.
there anyone opposed? Okay, now we are moving on to Depot District projects. Mike?
Thank you. We have with us today representing the Galvin Foundation, Dan Kent, and also Victoria Store. Victoria, as you know, is with Camoin Associates, and on this project was hired by Galvin to assist with their economic analysis. Dan has a brief PowerPoint, which I did circulate late morning, but I think, Dan, you should be able to share the screen.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. All right.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Dan.
Okay, so I wanted to just start by giving a quick recap on what we've presented to date, and then I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, who's going to discuss a couple of comparable projects and how they compare to the pilot terms that we're proposing in these two applications. So to start, just as a brief overview, the two projects for your consideration, 75 North 7th and 708 State Street, make up the Depot District. In total, the Depot District produces 138 new apartments, 84 of which are market rate units, 54 of which are affordable units for households with low and moderate incomes. The project produces 10 commercial spaces, including 9,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, of which 4,000 square feet is reserved for minority and women businesses to be rented at a preference. We are also already under construction in the historic Depot building, which we're turning into a craft brewery. That commercial space and all of the other commercial spaces in the Depot District are not a part of any pilot request or abatement request. The project also features green design and green space. It has award-winning green architectural features and new green space for the public. So the first building, 708 State Street, creates 63 market rate units. You see the rendering of it there. It has 5 1,000 square feet commercial spaces and some beautiful green space. And the analysis from Victoria and Camoin 310 demonstrates that this project results in a strong fiscal benefit for the city of Hudson, with a benefit to cost ratio of 2.09 to 1. And that's based on the proposed pilot terms in our application. Right across the street is 75 North 7th, which is 75 apartments, of which 54 are affordable for folks earning anywhere between the minimum wage and $65,000 per year. This project has 4 1,000 square feet commercial spaces, which are going to be rented at a priority for minority and women-owned businesses. And this project also generates a strong fiscal impact for the city of Hudson with a 1.63 to 1 benefit to cost ratio. And I'll note that as we discussed in our previous presentations, the outdoor amenities at both of these buildings will be shared by all residents. This is really 2 buildings, but 1 community. The quality of the units in the 2 apartments are going to be the same materials, same quality. So there will be no difference in the look or feel of these 2 buildings or the amenities that residents have access to. So at that, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, who is going to walk us through a comparison of the proposed pilot terms and some very recent comparable projects from around the region. Victoria?
Thank you, Dan, Madam Chair, members of the IDA. It's good to be back speaking with you again about this project. As Dan said, I've been asked to provide some context for the requested pilot agreements for these 2 buildings. I do work with IDAs throughout the state, particularly in this region and downstate. Housing and affordable housing projects are coming across my desk with greater frequency. So I'm bringing to you some insight from that practice and the kinds of things that IDAs are looking at. This is especially important for 75 North State, where the pilot is requested to be more generous than for 708. The basic reason, as you can understand, is that it's an affordable housing project. The quality is the same, the cost is the same for construction and operation, but residents will be paying lower rent because of the income restrictions. So as a comparison, in the capital region, a similar affordable project was approved with a 25-year pilot, whereas 78 North Street, the abatement or discount, if you will, from full taxes is 68%. This affordable project was 69, very comparable, and that was up in the capital region, and it was approved this winter. For 708 State, we are comparing it to another mixed income project across the river in Kingston. 708 State Street is asking for a discount from the full taxes of a 51% discount. In Kingston, the project was awarded an 84% discount, more generous than the Galvin Foundation is requesting for either 708 State or 75 North. There are a couple of additional comparables that I want to talk about. They are not as exact, but I think particularly of interest is for housing specifically, municipalities can take advantage of provisions under New York state law to provide a tax abatement directly in certain cases. And this fall, the town of Rhinebeck approved an existing senior housing project that was being purchased and renovated at a 100% tax abatement. That's affordable senior housing. The demand was very strong in Northern Dutchess County for that unit, and the town of Rhinebeck Town Board approved at 100%. And similarly, I worked on a project downstate this summer. Again, it was an affordable project, came to the end of its pilot and needed renovation. It changed hands and did receive a generous pilot. Basically what they did was they rolled over the existing pilot and made it more generous. So the community that approved this for the first 10 years was accepting even less pilot revenue because the project was so essential to the community to maintain those affordable units. And furthermore, the benefit to cost ratio, which we calculate for you and which Dan described as being greater than 1, For that particular project, it was important enough for the community that they actually went for 99 cents to one, just about break even. And I particularly want to highlight that one because affordable housing is a little bit of a different animal, and IDAs are seeing more and more of it right now. This, what you're experiencing, is definitely a trend elsewhere in the state, especially as compared to a year ago. And if you'll bear with me, a little bit of background on that. Without specific numbers or statistics yet, I believe that what I'm seeing here in New York is a trend for IDAs to be asked to provide assistance where previously you weren't. Historically, a large portion of the country's affordable housing was built and managed directly by the government and not by a private entity. As private entities, whether nonprofits or developers, are coming in, what I'm seeing are increasingly complicated financing structures to get the project done without it being owned directly by the federal government or directly by the state government. So I'm going to be looking for statistics on this. It will take, I think, a couple of years for them to come out, but this is a trend that I'm seeing, is a greater private sector and private nonprofit sector involvement in trying to create this affordable housing and meet the need in communities like Hudson, like the areas where I'm working downstate or in the capital region. In addition, what I'm also seeing is that before they come to an IDA, they're literally turning over every stone to find money in the capital structure to reduce their costs and reduce the local ask. Low-income housing tax credits, Housing Finance Authority, HUD, new market tax credits, historic tax credits if it happens to renovate a building, are becoming much more common to see in a housing financing package, again, from the pressure to get something built in the community. And I invite Dan to jump in and talk about this too. And I think it's reasonable for the members to say, well, why now? Why is it so difficult to pay for an affordable or a mixed income housing project? You know, maybe we got these done 5 or 10 years ago without the need for the assistance. And one of the things that is important is that the rent is restricted, but the construction costs are not. And you're probably seeing newspaper articles about, you know, the price of plywood and other building materials costs have really increased over the past year. There's been a push for local home improvement. And that's an important factor for commercial construction. Their costs are going up. When you were talking about affordable, they don't have the ability to pass along those costs to the renter. But as Dan explained, here, this project is designed to deliver the same quality, safety, and amenities, regardless of whether you're affordable or not. And I think that's one of the driving factors among projects coming to an IDA, or maybe at a point later in the past you wouldn't have seen it. So I'm going to stop there. Let Dan add any additional information about the costs and the projects, and then answer questions if the IDA would like.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for the context. So just to summarize, our goal with this project is to meet the urgent need for housing in the city of Hudson, to create job opportunities and economic opportunities, especially for minority and women-owned businesses, and also to revitalize a neighborhood and to beautify a really significant corner of the city of Hudson. And we know that all of these are shared goals of the IDA that we all share. So in doing so, you know, our effort and the reason we brought Victoria on is we want to make sure that this project achieves all of those goals while also having a positive fiscal impact on the city of Hudson, which we know now with financial pressures from COVID is as important as it's ever been. So we think, looking at this analysis, looking at the current terms, not only does this project deliver on a strong fiscal benefit for the city of Hudson, but it's also aligned with similar projects in the region. So we're not proposing anything that's unusual or anything that is unfair by comparison. So that, we welcome any questions and feedback from the IDA, and I thank you for taking the time to learn about and discuss this project with us.
Thank you, Dan and Victoria. Are there any questions from the board? Please state your name.
Rebecca Wolf. Hello. So I have a couple of questions. So one is just a general question about the request for a pilot for the market rate development. Basically, I'm trying to understand the perspective from which it could be asked for. And essentially all that, it sounds like the idea is that, if you can demonstrate a benefit to the city, it justifies a pilot, but I don't really follow that because essentially, for a market rate development, there is a tremendous profit. And basically, it sounds like what the developer is asking for in that circumstance is just to be able to make more profit from the development. And so that's a question that I have.
Yeah, so to that point, this is not about increasing profits for the developer. This is about generating enough income from the project that we're able to bring in bank financing. Because regardless of the project, we can't do it alone. It needs to be done with a construction loan. And in order to qualify for that loan, we need to demonstrate that we have enough income to pay it back. So that's what's driving the request for the pilot, because not only would there be no profits without a pilot from the IDA, there wouldn't be a project because we wouldn't be able to finance it.
So as far as I understand, my second question was really about the way that Galvin Foundation finances its projects. And, as it has been stated, it's an asset-based model, and there are a lot of assets, and and certainly many demonstrated sales of assets. And so I guess my question is something like, I specifically do want to draw your attention to I guess a promise or a claim that was made a couple of years ago about the development of some affordable units in the city of Hudson that in properties that the foundation owns. There's 29 units, I believe, in March 2018 were reported by the Galvin Foundation to be in development for affordable housing. And, I'm curious to understand what happened to that, because essentially I think that, I would like to hear more about that.
Gladly, yeah. So we've continued developing those units, and many of them are online at this point. 335 Allen Street, 357 Union Street. There's a number of units that have been completed, and I'd be happy to send an update in connection with that initiative so that you can see the status of each of those buildings. What's notable about that is that was an entirely voluntary commitment from Galvin Foundation, and really a pilot in the sense of a test run of a mixed income model in the city of Hudson. So that we didn't receive any public financing. We didn't ask for any tax benefits for that initiative. And the goal was to really promote a model of affordable housing that creates low income and moderate income housing units in mixed income settings.
Which property?
So we see this,
With that one?
sorry?
Which specific property are you talking about?
The units in the initiative that you referenced from 2018.
In which property though?
Oh, and they were spread across the 10 different properties that were named in the initiative. So 335 Allen is one example, 357 Union. And I'll be happy to provide, you know, an overview of where we are on that initiative.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are, I mean, according to one account, there are 29 units that were specifically identified as going to be developed as affordable dwelling units.
Right.
Okay. Great. So, okay, I'm done.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Rebecca, if you can think of something else, you can always follow up with Dan and email him and see, you know, whatever changes you feel necessary, and you can always include the board in the emails if you choose to. Are there any other questions from the board for Dan or Victoria on this Depot District project?
Yeah, this is Heather. I have a question.
Yes, Heather.
Dan, one of the challenges that people identify when they look at some of the projects like these are the fact that Galvin also has a large number of properties under their ownership within the city of Hudson that have been vacant for a very long time. And I guess my question is, why is there not more of an effort to get those units back in the market before building out a huge, you know, housing empire that requires significant tax breaks?
So to that, it's a continued effort, and Rebecca referenced, you know, one of our initiatives bringing several buildings back online, and every year we bring on more and more buildings. I'd be happy to send you a kind of outline of our anticipated completion date for the vacant buildings that we currently have in our portfolio, but it's a process. And in order to make sure that we can rent these units at a reasonable rent, we need to pay close attention to cost control, and you know, it makes it difficult to try to do all of them at once while still doing them in a way where we can rent them at a reasonable rate. That being said, our efforts to rehabilitate those single family homes and smaller buildings in the city of Hudson, it's not mutually exclusive with this project to develop affordable housing. We wouldn't be able to sustainably develop very low income housing in these residences. In order to do that, we need to pursue a larger scale project so that we can bring in public financing so that we can rent very low income apartments for, you know, 30, 50 years. And we also need the support of the IDA through a pilot in order to make that possible.
I guess my follow-up question to that would be, given the Galvin Foundation's stated concern about housing, what is the rationale for keeping so many properties off the market for so long if the foundation or Galvin, other, you know, entities don't have the financing or the bandwidth to get them on the market within a reasonable time? Why would you not consider putting them on the market so that someone with the resources could actually bring them on?
The primary reason is that as a nonprofit organization, we use the buildings that we redevelop for civic purposes. So we're able to rent them out at affordable rents or partner with organizations like Camp Hill Hudson to rent it out to folks that they serve. So that's one of the reasons. The other is that as a nonprofit organization, we are, you know, every dollar of rent that a person pays as part of their lease in a Galvin apartment stays in this community, and it's required by the IRS to benefit the people of Hudson and of Columbia County, because that's our mission. So that's something you don't get if you sell a property to a private landlord. It's more likely to become a second home for second homeowners. It's more likely to become an Airbnb. And it's less likely to keep that rent circulating within this community and benefiting initiatives that not only help everyone in the city of Hudson, but also focus on the most vulnerable and disadvantaged. So that's why it's important from our end as a philanthropic organization to create a model that's sustainable and that continues to keep resources and dollars within this community so that they're benefiting people who wouldn't necessarily benefit from other forms of development in Hudson.
I'll just follow up on this. I mean, an example, there is a property on Union Street and 5th, which is an apartment building, which has been vacant for a very long time. Somebody might be able to supply the amount of time. And which is actually, a possible, it's in danger of possibly decaying, to the point of being past repair, although it has been recently attended to a little bit. That, I would really like to hear a more detailed explanation of why that building, if there is a commitment on the part of the Galvin Foundation to scattered site affordable housing, such that there are low-income people living within neighborhoods in which there are also not low-income people, why, for example, would that building, which is, I'm not sure how many units are in it, but it could be as many as, 12 single, one-bedroom apartments. Why has the Galvin Foundation not taken that opportunity to provide in the neighborhood affordable housing?
So with that building, it's really just a matter of the timing in our pipeline. I think we've been very productive in bringing other buildings on Union Street and in Allen Street and throughout the city of Hudson online. And in some cases, it's just a matter of the timing of our priorities. Right now, we've been very focused on finishing a daycare center on the ground floor of the Armory building because we noticed that was a really significant community need, and we wanted to partner with a nonprofit organization who was in need of a new location so that they wouldn't have to close down their daycare center. So some of it's just a matter of timing, but it's not a reflection of
how many years has that building been vacant?
I don't know when that building was acquired by Galvin Foundation, but I can get you that information.
Mm-hmm. Because I think it's an example, it's well, I don't know. To me, it doesn't add up that it would be simply not on the radar, as it were. As a large scale dwelling when there is a housing crisis. Why would that not be used to push back on, essentially the displacement of low-income people from the neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we look at is how fast we can get something online, what the total cost per unit will be. And there are some other properties in the city of Hudson where by starting on those projects now, we're able to get them online sooner and at a lower cost. So 501 Union does have special challenges, and we've put money into fixing the roof and stabilizing the structure, and we're in the process of pursuing approvals and preparing for approvals for that building now. So it is a project that we're moving forward on, and I can appreciate the interest in seeing it come back online because it's such a
But is it being
significant
developed
structure.
for affordable units?
What's that?
Is it being developed for any affordability?
We don't have I don't have any plans on the income mix for that building as of yet, but we haven't pursued any public financing sources to date for that building.
Mhm. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board? If not, are there any questions from the public? Believe we have Ms. Schneider's hand up, please.
Hi, thank you. Earlier in this conversation, Rebecca was talking about 29 affordable units that were supposed to go up, and Dan mentioned something about 10 properties. I just wanted to clarify what these numbers were both in reference to.
So these are in reference to a mixed income housing initiative that we announced in 2018. So Ali, I'll be happy to clue you in on the information as I share it with Rebecca on the update on where we are for those units.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, when you send that information out, can you send it to the board as well, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public? Or maybe the board, maybe you thought of something. If there aren't any other questions from the board members, and if there aren't any other questions from the public, I will ask at 2:23 p.m. for a motion to adjourn. I believe John Cody said it, but he was muted.
I was muted. Thank you very much.
So John Cody made that motion. May I have a second to adjourn, please?
I will second.
Thank you. You got that, Lisa?
I do.
Okie dokie. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you all. It is now 2:24 p.m. and the Hudson IDA is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you all.